Absolutely torn to my sides. I am so unbelievably excited. This is my first broadcast with a Gecko on the board, and where else is better to start than the high school scene, where when even pro players necessarily haven't brought out a full-fledged strategy just yet. Same thing, especially with the collegiate scene. Bringing out something that is unknown like this and maybe kind of untested against Quartz Royal could be another big shock factor that St. John Bosco are looking to bring out here against Quartz Royal. Not only is it Lotus, a map that a lot of teams don't really want to touch, but it's also an agent that gets heavily underutilized, heavily undertouched, and it just may be the perfect, puzzle piece to shock in, to fit the whole scheme, to maybe give themselves a big upper edge in the first half here of this map.
It most definitely could be, but it comes down to whether or not, as you mentioned, whether it can actually follow through and even kind of have the emphasis that we're looking for. Because we talked about the collegiate scene, better yet, and what exactly they're doing over there, and how well high schools start to kind of take the adaptations and start to integrate those same kind of game plans. We haven't seen too much Gecko, if any at all, really in that collegiate scene. In this map particularly, we've seen a lot of exchanges and a little bit more kind of, I would say, harbors being thrown at this point because of just how long these lineups can be. But, I mean, Gecko, you can definitely feel free to change my mind, because I would love to see him go ahead and have just a massive foundational role here inside this area. But I don't know. We still got time, and it's a pistol round, so you're not going to see too much util right here, right now.
Blocks through the player to initially swing out. Keep in mind, it is a pistol round, so the util in total is a little bit slim in comparison to what we'll see for the later stages. But doesn't mean they don't have anything necessarily to work with. Paranoia in one dark cover for Eitne. Right now, Quartz Royal are taking their time as they start to swing in through that root and rubble side of A. Maybe looking to head through main and link towards B, but I think most of the pressure is going to broil up here onto that A side. One player hiding in Hut. Unfortunately, they'll swing out, and Sean will pay the price because of that. It's Zexy to find first blood. Block following suit onto Kane. And, well, it doesn't seem like St. John Bosco have done a wonderful job of being able to keep their players alive, now losing yet another Avea. It's just a very tumultuous first round, and it just seems like Quartz Royal have already punched their ticket into a first round win.
Yeah, I mean, in a 5v2 situation with so much utility just going ahead and starting to regenerate and even in the sniff of the player towards the back of the map, you know exactly where everybody is from John Bosco, and you've already picked off so much in the meantime. You got to look at what John Bosco provides here on the field, because, I mean, obviously we saw them, just 2 days ago to kind of see what exactly they can put onto the field, and they liked aggression. They were really good with those initial picks. Kane was obviously the catalyst of that over and over and over again, but you didn't really have too much follow-up in a composition like this, and you didn't see it in the first round, better yet, when they let to go for those kind of wild card initial picks. So, playing more attack-oriented when you have the initiator there, especially when it's a Gecko and a Sky, they're not really the ones, say, like maybe a KO, where you can get the suppression in, and you can kind of play a little bit more recon, and you can make sure to kind of stall things out and make the push that much more difficult. They are purely retake initiators. They are aggressive initiators who like to go for the flashes, who like to go for the crowd control. And Quartz Hill, they're ready for that. If they go ahead and choose the right site, catch that Gecko, catch that Sky off guard, things will be very, very easy for them, considering that, well, you don't have too much of an actual controller presence here, because 9 times out of 10, we're seeing a Harbor, we're seeing a Viper to back it up and synergize with it, and neither one of those players are here present at all.
I'm honestly shocked about that. Last time we saw this map together here, Dallas Harbor reigned out predominantly as the best agent for this map, and it was something that was non-comparative to every other player was brought forward. One team had a Viper, one team brought a Viper and a Harbor. And it's very influential. It helps a lot. But St. John Bosco, they'll take that first round loss on the chin. Apparently a player has disconnected, and who else but Kane, who had a ridiculous performance the other day with you and I on broadcast, and proceeded to drop, 30-plus kills between the first two maps that we saw. Yeah. I think 20-plus on the... It was 30 on the second alone, and it was like 20 on the first. No matter what, it was a ridiculous performance, and having them disconnect early could stop some of that mojo Jojo, but it is just the first 2 rounds. It's not a huge deal. Yeah. This is one of the ones that's going to go expectantly over to Quartz Royal. They've got SMGs, 4 Spectres. They have a VAL to work with as well. They have all the tools in their tool belts to easily take in toward the sites. I don't expect them to have any problems. It's just going to be a matter of making this round pricey for St. John Bosco, right? Force 2 rifles out of their hands, or the rifle and an SMG. Force as many weapons as you can down to the floorboard so that they can't bring them to the next one, so that when you buy your rifles in round 3, it still can more likely than not have to face 5 full weapons to go against. You want to make sure it's only 3 or 4. Forced into by Sheriffs continue to burn that eco, which is a huge problem that plagues the high school scene.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, when it comes around to the second round, I always like to go ahead and kind of put an emphasis for teams to say, go ahead and look for these defaults a little bit more. Try to figure out what exactly is going on around the map. Try to go ahead and put your toes in each site. I know you want to push aggressively, but go somewhere different than when you did on round 1 and sort of take attendance. Figure out what this defensive default's looking like. Starting to figure out where all these players are and what kind of different agents you're dealing with on these sites. And when players start to become a problem, you know where not to go. You've already went ahead and taken those numbers into a coordinates and just are going to go anywhere else. But instead, we're already seeing the double down over towards the C site because, well, if it worked once, hey, it's going to work again.
Well, Quartz Royal, they're already over on A. It's not too big of a problem. Seems like St. John Bosco sent 3 players through that C lobby and back through attacker spawn. Maybe get the flank here on Quartz Royal. Notice that Dake is currently watching that door frame in towards the lobby. There's a little bit of assistance as well from Take Notes. That is the Phantom player, the rifle player that came out here for Quartz Royal. There goes the flash, though. Not enough to come out, and St. John Bosco will bleed those 3 players quickly. Not a problem for Quartz Royal to deal with them. All 5 still remaining, all 5 weapons they brought forward in the round. Take Notes taking a quick swing over towards Sean. Takes a big lick of damage and will fall back because of that. Now hiding behind that short break stack, meaning that once you place a turret up there, you don't have to ego swing yourself. You can wait till the turret calls things out, and you pretty much know for sure where these players are lying. At least one of them still working in towards Link, still trying to play in through this pincer. They're more likely than not just going to go die to that spike once it detonates and just go in after the fact, make sure that the players themselves don't get the extra credits for the kill.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all it comes down to. Even in those ultimate takes as well is another thing that you just don't want to start to let accumulate there in the back end. So, good little call there by John Bosco. Just kind of played out towards the end, see what they could get in the meantime there with an early push to come through, but it just didn't happen for them. They did get a couple kills in the meantime, but it's not enough to really go ahead and suffice and say, okay, we can take this round or at least go ahead and attempt it there towards the end. So with Quartz Hill getting the guaranteed first 2 on the board, and Take Notes having that Phantom in hand, there can be a lot of oppression here, even in the 3rd round, which could result possibly in a 3-0 start, because oddly enough, we saw a lot of those in the matchup with John Bosco the other day, but, I mean, it's a completely different squad. We're further along in the bracket. We're hoping that we don't see a little bit of a repeat of that. We're hoping to see some kind of rounds be put on the board for both sides.
I think we're about as far as you can get into the bracket here, Dallas,
Yeah.
right? That's the finals time, and it is really making or breaking territory. One of these teams will get their punch their ticket to move to KC, and the other one, unfortunately, won't get that luxury, nor the luxury to say that they placed first. Skynet's first blood of the St. John Bosco side. Finally, the first time we see them get that first kill. Maybe even a kill in general for them, considering how rough that first and second round tended to be. Quartz Royal will still manage to get that spike down safely on that C side, but the escape away from the objective was exact opposite scenario. Only Eitney is able to step away with a kill. Unfortunately, their life forfeited after the fact, and St. John Bosco have a very clean retake on that 3rd round, but they only lose 1 rifle, which is perfect heading into round 5.
Yeah, an outstanding look for them, and considering that, I mean, you only lose 1, as you mentioned, that's just kind of there for the take. That's a sacrifice you have to make, and even then, if you're going to go ahead and be giving up the site, you honestly kind of give up a lot of pressure there, because Quartz Hill can go ahead and know at that point to say they're already setting up for the post plant. They're kind of nearby. They have 1 more resource, and you're going to see some over-investment or at least some more aggression being pushed back towards that spawn to kind of compromise that and say, look, we want to go ahead and put a dent in their plans. You're going to be making something. We catch them off guard, but that never really came around. You just go ahead and kind of feel settled and let that, I don't know, convenience and also that just comfortability sit in the back of your mind. But seeing a 2-1 here on the board, nobody's really comfortable with their standing just yet. Want a couple more rounds for one side or the other. John Bosco, though, very, very happy with their economy thus far.
Well, that happiness could quickly turn soured and go the other way. Like I said, though, escaping with all 4 rifles and only losing 1 is a really solid statistics for St. John Bosco, considering that Quartz Royal kept all 5 of their weapons in round 2. It's the best case scenario. Unfortunately, it does mean that their Omen will not be able to purchase up a rifle for the round and will have to play for a pickup into that first player. That first player may just be Kane. Look at this aggressive swing!
There it is.
A great shot to the head of Take Notes and block. We highlighted Kane's prowess as a player just earlier in round 1 and 2, and it is already wreaking havoc here in the 4th. It doesn't look like Kane will stop anytime soon, but finally punished by Zexy, another wonderful fragger for the side of Quartz Royal. That's still a 2-for-1 trade, and Miri has themselves a weapon now, something cheap to work with, but maybe something perfect, as the side of St. John Bosco will give up the space of rubble and route, towards Quartz Hill Royal.
30 seconds.
Gotta say, I'm a little surprised that we didn't see too much of an actual kind of lap around there from the likes of John Bosco to capitalize off the fact that they knew where that spike was towards the A side of main. But I mean, that's not the biggest deal in the world. You have to see what exactly can be done right now and actually hold on to that site. Because the smoke goes down, Mary does know that that site is going to be pushed. So, I mean, Via needs somewhat of a backup here, needs some assistance. And, well, Sean's going to bring it with 2 kills on the board and already making this a 1v4 situation. The numbers John Bosco had at the end of the last round continue and follow suit here as they do it once more to make sure this becomes a tie game.
An impressive affair from St. John Bosco, tying things up already. 2-2, Quartz Hill Royal. You talked about changing up the strategy, maybe using that round 2 as a freebie round to gather early information about how maybe St. John Bosco will default defensively. They have hit the A site pretty much every time. In the round we saw them hit C, they're expected to lose because St. John Bosco will be their first rifle, and Quartz Hill Royal aren't really bringing much to the table with still the SMGs they had forced in that last round. It doesn't seem like they gave themselves the best game plan, and they just fell back to the strategy of saying A-sides worked. It's definitely not just because we won the pistol and took the bonus afterwards. It's definitely because we're the better team, but a single man shut you down. A single man named Kane took you off the board, 2 of your entries forward, and you just lost all the momentum that really would have sustained that push into the A site. You didn't even get to fight the player in Hut. You didn't even fight the Sky on the side of St. John Bosco.
Yeah.
Now, you're coming in with pistols, and you're going to burn so much util to take this C site where there are 2 players avidly defending it.
Yeah, mention the back and forth of each of these sites, really how you can go ahead and flip-flop and kind of figure out where your ANSY's going to be. But, I mean, we haven't seen too much of that just at all out of Quartz Hill. Sure, they won the first 2 pistol rounds. Ever since then, they haven't really gotten a feel of what is being provided on this map. So they're going to know here in a second if they decide to keep on pushing towards C, because Kane was waiting in the back, and you already saw that rotation kind of go underway. But when you see and use B as a backup, you better be ready for whatever's coming along. And in the back of the map is able to go ahead and at least get one. So that nice little lurker roll for the controller kind of coming through in fruition right now. But even then, it's working in absolute dividends and gold as it gets another.
Wow, very shocking affair. The rotate from C and through B. St. John Bosco have been caught off guard. That's 2 rifles now given over to Quartz Hill Royal. Vea was very concerned. How is there an omen up in heaven? They weren't sure how it happened, but there it is. Sean, though, finally taking one off the board against Quartz Hill Royal. Let's take notes. The jet for the side of Quartz Hill. Heine with the sheriff tries to swing over, but gets caught off instead by Miri. Sean has opened up for 3, and almost a buddy ace between Miri and Sean, but Sky will take the final frag. A somewhat dirtier round, something that Quartz Hill Royal will be plenty happy with a spike plant and 2 kills, meaning 2 rifles forced to be repurchased for St. John Bosco.
Yeah, and even, I mean, considering that you're now on the 3-round spree, you reached the maximum money that you can accumulate per round. And already with John Bosco holding on to 2 rifles, or, in the last 2 rounds, holding on to 4 rifles, an even better stance than what I previously messed up on. You got to consider that, I mean, they have all the money in the world. I mean, you look at this, even after a round lost, they're going to have themselves another buy, and probably off a backup from that, they don't have to worry about an eco. They'll get enough on the back of that as well. And knowing that more ultimates are going to be kind of coming into the mix here soon, that could be another thing that could be somewhat of a cornerstone for them to kind of stall things out and really play around this map so far. But we're going ahead and pushing the A side once more because Quartz Hill, they said it worked during the first 2 rounds, the only 2 that we've won so far. So let's give it another ride here when we get the rifles to work with.
Unfortunately, Kane falls after the ultimate use early. Does only find themselves a little impact towards 1. But Quartz Hill Royal will be kept at bay. And notice their hesitancy now to swing back through Rebel en route. Maybe anticipating that Vea, who was typically holding that A side, has regained control of that space that Kane was in previously. That's not the case whatsoever. In fact, Vea rotates to C and B. They'll leave only Sean actively defending this A site. In the door frame, the arches connecting towards tree.
Right there.
That's kind of a dangerous spot for your player to be in. We'll have to really rely on the flash to zone them away. Throws out the nade first and foremost, and unfortunately, it doesn't go off fast enough. A bit slow for that util, and Daked will get the pickup.
Slow and steady here for a plant. Gotta say I love it. Just going ahead, making sure every single corner is cleared, making sure that you're not going to lose any bodies in the meantime, because Quartz Hill has had to take that Starfox a little bit too much as at this point, but still, when you know the pressure's there in the back, you get all the information necessary. You got to consider that there is still a Rolling Thunder available on the field for Quartz Hill, but are they going to invest it? I wouldn't put it past them, but problem is, well, Breach is dead and can't really have the opportunity to even do that. Instead, you have the shutdown coming through, and already Zaxi on the edge with a 3K to back it up. to get Quartz Hill finally their third here on the board to keep things rocking along. So I talked about the economy there for John Bosco and how things could definitely be messed up a little bit, or at least slowed down for them. But I mean, on the defensive side of the map, they got 3 ultimates now, and they also have themselves plenty of money there in the back end to make sure they have at least 2 more buys in their pockets.
Yeah, once Vega got caught off guard there by Zexy, I apologize. Quartz Hill played a wonderful play, putting down the lockdown, which forces St. John Bosco to aggress deeper in towards that rubble in tree side to try to get that lockdown destroyed as fast as possible. They can go for the defuse. They weren't aware that Zexy was still locking down over on main. And it catches Miri off guard next, and who else but Sky behind it. St. John Bosco bleed away the final 3 players when they theoretically had an advantage, but the ultimate makes things tricky, and that's where Quartz Hill Royal have really been thriving. Even in rounds where they aren't expected to get huge results, like that Thrifter they had previously, they still drop 2 weapons and get that spike down. That's about as much as you could ask for a team like that, and Quartz Hill Royal are plenty happy with the performance. And a timeout forced very early. It is use it or lose it territory, but you still haven't really seen a full plant rush towards B from Quartz Hill Royal, so opting for a timeout when you don't know a strategy yet completely for the B side may come to bite St. John Bosco in the flank early when they still have plenty of rounds left, still have way too many rounds, only halfway through, that Quartz Hill Royal could still diversify their strats.
Yeah, I mean, Quartz Hill definitely still have ample time on the board. I mean, considering that you just need 3 more to kind of get that guaranteed even half at the end of the day. But I mean, still, to get to that point, you have to start figuring out where exactly some weaknesses on the map are. Because, I mean, you always had that wild card of that Neon extending over towards A, extending B, kind of pushing out towards C, maybe lapping you on a thrifty round. You're not quite sure. And that's the one thing that's really problematic here for Quartz Hill. Because, I mean, Kane likes to play the aggressive kind of role, likes to get up, look for those early frags. And while sometimes it works out, there's a lot of discipline here this time around, which I gotta say, it's pretty impressive to see out of Kane, more specifically. But for Quartz Hill, they also have some discipline to know that, you know what, this switch up, that B site that you just mentioned, let's go ahead and give it a shot and hit it outright, directly at the very start of the round. But when you look at John Bosco's retakes, this is where they had the most angles to go ahead and actually hit back from. So honestly, with that consideration, probably hear me in the back of their head, they realize that may not be the best of ideas.
Ooh, looks like a C plant could come forward here for Quartz Hill Royal, swinging in from C door through C main and now direct towards site. This looked like Mira was initially teasing over towards the B defense, but now has to quickly join the rest of the team. It's Itany, though, going for that spike placement, but forced off with the death there of Take Notes. They don't have the covering fire they were really anticipating up to this point. Sky tries to over-aggress and is punished because of it. Kane having to go for the refrag back. It's a very tumultuous battle on site, back and forth for both teams, but Veas finally gives the go-ahead, but Zexy pounces perfectly, and it's up to Miri, and they can't clutch it up. Zexy! 2 rounds in a row to hero play out the final few players. Quartz Hill Royal even getting the spike down for the extra bonus towards the end, and now going positive, denying the St. John Bosco momentum they're brewing up.
Yeah, that's really all it comes down to. I mean, Quartz Hill getting themselves 1 more, and even off the loss of that, as I mentioned, they're going to have a little bit of a bite on the back of it, but it means it's not going to be for every single player, and it's sure as heck not going to be comfortable considering that knowing the next one, you better hold on to these rifles or find one of those, 4-man wins that we saw earlier, because somebody's going to need an upgrade eventually, and that overcharge was already invested earlier, so you don't really have too much of a backup there, but the judge could definitely be there. So, I mean, already, looking at what we've seen from Quartz Hill, finally a C-site win, but now 2 times in a row, your last 2 rounds, both your rifle rounds that have been won have been off the back of a singular player getting either 3K or a 4K. That's not going to last forever. That gas will only get you so far. You need to have somewhat of a more renewable source of energy here, something that can actually kind of charge itself. And honestly, I mean, teamwork can definitely help that out, or at least make that one player go that much more further. But while they're all kind of pushing themselves together, they know that, well, the back of the map could be a good spot, but you have to make sure to be ready to shoot that if somebody moves out of the way.
Huge flash coming out here once again from Sean. The Dizzy can work well, but it's a limited time. Kane swings back around the corner. Hot does find 1 kill. Itany with a refrag back, but there goes Miri. And Miri needs to start checking their corners. This is starting to get really unfortunate for the side of St. John Bosco, shooting themselves in the foot by not checking these tighter alleys. And considering they picked this map, you made me expect them to lock those in a little bit more. It's a closeout, though, for Quartz Royal, and it is not hard for Dick to swing back around that corner for the final frag. Finally, not Zexy securing the win. Somebody else on the board, but it is still Quartz Royal taking themselves and meeting the same exact score that St. John Bosco had done previously, 3 in a row. Now, Quartz Royal will repeat that same success.
Yeah, I mean, even then, once again, I mean, it was Zexy there for the last pick of the round. So, I mean, you got to look at over and over again. I mean, sure, we're not going to go ahead and really put all the emphasis in the world on this one player, but you got to see what can be done, consider from everybody else. Your duelist has to step eventually. That is a very big one that we haven't really seen all the emphasis in the world from a Jet, but now take notes. Is at least alive there on the rear end of that battle, but still, there's not really too many guns on the field here for the side of John Bosco, so you can't give them all the credit to think that they're going to pull this one out of thin air. They just have to make it expensive, and they've already at least kind of done that, knocking down one player, but there's still a lot more around the map, and they're going to go ahead and kind of feel out these different areas to kind of figure out where they can pick you next.
It's just a matter of doing it safely. Quartz Royal have realized they've got the gun advantage. They've got the advantage in numbers now. Let's just make full use of this map. Let's try to be as safe as we humanly can. And there's an ult orb inside of Mount. Take it. It's free. You're going to take this long of time to work on this map in the first place. At least get some freebies out of it. Speaking of freebies, it's cost them a lot of util. Look how much Quartz Royal are really utilizing, dumping in towards the seaside, where the only actual defense currently there is Kane, who's been forced back wonderfully with a great stun. What a shot from Kane to the head to take notes, hoping for the body damage, and just not finding enough of it. It's Daked with the 3K to secure Kane, but Sky will pounce back to deny that from going any further towards the 4th. A very expensive round for Quartz Royal, something St. John Bosco were really hounding for. And now Sky will have the unfortunate chore here to make sure they check their corners, and even then force a 190 flick over to the opposing side after getting that first blood. But with a retreat by Blanc, the job's gotten a lot harder. They'll have to swing towards Zexy first and foremost. Blanc will retreat away. The guiding light sent out by Zexy will give them time to pivot, and Sky will now have to give ring around the rosy chase, and they just chose the wrong time to reload, and will have to pay the price because of it. Zexy with the final blood, 6-3, now guaranteeing an even halftime score.
Yeah, Cortel really just kicking into high gear right here, right now. And I mean, you got to give the credit in the world once again. Is actually closing out the round. But I mean, let's go ahead and start looking at the rest of these players. Deked, I mean, just being an absolute fragger, not even really in the post plant, oddly enough. Just kind of there, lingering about, and just kind of pushing with the rest of the squad, which is really odd because you can see that they're taking a little bit more of a lead over Take Notes, who is that duelist role, but maybe we'll see him on the operator, and that may be the shoes that they like to fill here in the terms of where this team likes to stand. But, I mean, looking at John Bosco as well, consider what we've seen from them previously. A little bit more of a swap up, and even better yet, a little bit more of an actual hesitation of these ultimates, because usually they're an elite. They can actually kind of play things out. That's what we're typically used to them sitting in. But right now, when you're in a situation where you're behind and you have to catch things up, those resources will help you get to your destination. But you just have to figure out where and how to use them, and I don't know if they have that decision-making prowess yet.
Tasmanian Tigers sit out, and it will zone Kane away from behind that pillar. Just enough to realize they don't need to use the Aftershock to clear them away. It does force Kane's hand to re-swing, and they go for an even 1-for-1, something that Quartz Royal were really trying to stop. And on top of it, kill on sight, Vea aggresses in through main and takes another player off the board. Now it's just going to be a trade of util, smokes to cut off sight lines, and now it's going to be the job of Quartz Royal to find a safe way to pivot in through stairs. They try to go in, but Miri meets them at the door, finding yet another 1-for-1 trade. They'll send out the little boy, a.k.a. Wingman, and it's up to Sean, and it's another 1-for-1 trade. St. John Bosco have looked beautiful when it comes to these one-on-ones, and getting the kills early, and Vea's escape with no change back. It's exactly what they need here on the defense.
It is. I mean, they have to go ahead and kind of play with what's given to them. And honestly, I got to say, what was getting over to that round was Quartz just getting very, very aggressive. I mean, props them just trying to switch things up and pushing into the spawn and lapping around and bringing the spike into the enemy's hands. But I'm not really sure what their game plan was there, considering you already had a little bit of A control there on the map. You could just kind of play it around that. But knowing the lap round wasn't really going to work out for him, knowing that John Bosco now has 5 ultimates and the overcharge being utilized almost immediately coming out here from Kane, you're not getting too much effect out of that. And honestly, that's a little bit of a trend that we're noticing here. So maybe go ahead and kind of play that passive role once more. Look for the retake, because that's where you guys found all these rounds so far. The
guns have been more in favor for Kane than the actual util, it seems. from the shadows popped here by Miri, just seemingly for information. Does move them over, though, towards that rubble side, and really allows them to step into Kane's kind of usual role. After Kane decided that, well, maybe it's my time to shine and Palpatine their way into a, well, no more sequels, that's for sure. But a play in for Quartz Royal, looking to move in towards this C site. All 5 coming in from main. It'll be a very easy spray down for St. John Bosco as long as they can get there. Thrash was available here for Sean, but Sean goes down. They and Sky forced to go for the gun up engagement, and while they do find a pretty even trade, Zexy's still alive and thriving. Block with 45 HP. Tasmanian Tiger for the stun and concuss. And they still got plenty of util. A Sky and a Breach is a dangerous game to play against. And there's no ultimates left for St. John Bosco. That means Quartz Royal can take their time with that regrowth, pivot on over to the B side, and possibly go for this plant. But Miri, with a perfectly timed paranoia, is zoning them away and will force the rotate even further, Dallas, to A.
I love this. Just keep it going. Why not? Find security in the back of the map. You go ahead and peek a little bit ahead in the meantime to know that there are players looking for this retake, but just go ahead and find out what you can. Create a little bit of a stall and see what you can do here in the post play. Because you know you got all the time in the world. You can replace yourself and put it into a position where, well, you go ahead and pop off one. In a 1v2 situation, it comes down to Miri having to wait for these players to swing. And when they do, it's a little bit with a bit of vengeance there in the back, and his Blank is able to go ahead and get that 3rd for the round and a 7th on the board for Quartz here. Not giving themselves even at the end of the half, but guaranteeing an advantage no matter what. Now they can either find themselves at double the score here on John Bosco and their own map pick, or we could see ourselves possibly a 7-5 where the pistol rounds could just kind of mitigate everything.
Right there.
Be a pretty rough scoreline for St. John Bosco to come back from, but this map does tend to go fairly lopsidedly one way or the other. Who's to say St. John Bosco is not an attacking team? We won't know until that second half hits, but we got to conclude this round here first and foremost. Lockdown available for both sides. Rolling Thunder up for Quartz Royal, and the Thrash available for St. John Bosco. Sean has not really been as good for the util as we maybe would have expected to see come out here from the get-go, but who's necessarily to say that times can't change when they rotate over to that attacking side. Sean will pivot in through top A and start to actively defend this objective. Kane locking in from door frame, wonderfully using the slide to stray away from the sightline from main. And Quartz Royal is denied that initial peek. They'll use their Rolling Thunder, but it's not going to be enough. Kane for 2. VAL with a 3rd. Finally fragged back, but it is St. John Bosco tearing through the Quartz Royal side. Just takes remaining. Throw down the lockdown. Buy some time for yourselves. Zone away and play for the next fight. There goes the Thrash. The Gecko comes forward. It's a detain back your way. And Kane for the 3K. What a round for St. John Bosco defensively.
Yeah, very impactful for them considering, this is their own map pick. They have to have somewhat of a statement to go out on, considering that half was, well, only eventful for about the 3 rounds they won there at the start. And ever since then, it just kind of, can we squeeze something out? Can we find somewhat of a note here? And, well, they finally found it, but it was only for 2 more. So, considering that Quartz Hill now starting this defensive side, and knowing that even then that Jet feels a little bit more viable on the defensive side, at least for opening picks and kind of getting one and getting out, much better than Neon, at least. Bosco has to buy into this mentality. We've seen them on the attacking side before. They're very good at their job. They love to buy into this aggression. They just kind of wait, let Sky do their thing in the post plant. They're very, very traditional in how they like to frag out, and they're very efficient at it. But here on a pistol round, usually if one thing kind of goes wrong, it's a domino effect, and it's very, very heavy dominoes they're playing with.
Zexy in a firefight for their life, but Kane swings that corner there instead with a shorty. Itany gets the refrag, and they go uncontested. In fact, it's not them that loses their life, it's Dazed off screen that loses it instead. It still is St. John Bosco with the man advantage, still broiling up a pivot away from that B pillar side, away from B main, and in through Mound to take control of C. Only a turret here, and unfortunately Dazed off the board means that turret's in a mighty state of slumber. No longer giving the useful information that maybe Quartz Royal were really looking to work off of. And they even use Wingman to go for the plant. We finally get to see it happen here in Dallas. And for a map like this, honestly, where it is so dangerous to step up into the site to plant, Gecko is a free ID, an extra man with a gun up to guarantee that plant. Vea with a classic takes down, take notes. Blanc will fire back for the refrag, but Miri is not in the best of spots to work with. But thankfully, it is only Lightning remaining on site because Sean can clean up for yet another one. You got to rely on players like this. They're doing a wonderful job of it. Paranoia for that. And Sean, 3 to their name. St. John Bosco will get 1 round away from tying things up.
Yeah, I mean, just going ahead and playing for the C-site there on the first round, and just making sure to kind of play towards that dune. Even on a rifle round, it feels like an absolute nightmare, considering all the kind of post-plant utility you have there, even in that walkway and that little kind of, I would say, edge guard. It's just very, very, very thin, and there's not too much of a concern. You can just kind of get your way through it, just kind of almost looking at it. So knowing that already you're utilizing that on round 1, you're playing it as slow as possible, and you're kind of getting your ghosts to do their jobs when you've already found yourself a sufficient amount of frags, and you don't even have to stress yourself about getting onto the site for the plant. It's a really good utilization of their entire kit for John Bosco, and they have to do it once more here because, well, they got to tie this game up.
Fast lane utilized by Kane, and oh my goodness, take notes, did not just do that. Our producer was about to have a field day. You can already feel the slow-mo wheel being prepped for that. St. John Bosco, though, still get a huge 3 frags off the bat. Kane for 1, and Sean, I believe, got a spray down with 2. May not have been Sean, it may have been someone else, but Vea gets a kill with the Tasmanian Tiger. Something you definitely do not see every day. And it doesn't seem like St. John Bosco are keen to give up yet another frag, but they're sending Vea towards Blanc where the LOL Free Gun Classic tends to thrive, and it was Sean with his first 2. A 3rd to finish, 3K on the board again, and look what's already charged, Dallas. The slow-mo comes out. Thank you very much, Hippie. The Thrash is already brought on the board for St. John Bosco,
Yep.
which means free sight, you have a second Tasmanian Tiger of sorts, but this one detains instead of just concussing.
Yeah, and that's going to be a free site clear, all things considered. I mean, you know you get the rifles here to work with. It just comes down to the problem of getting through main, getting onto these sites, getting to a point where you can actually set up, surround it, and make sure to find somewhat of an execution because, well, I would say knowing that yellow border's there and knowing the guns that aren't really favoring John Bosco too much, you get overzealous, but you knew it was going to be going to that C site because, once again, post-plant utility. Play as aggressive as you can, and already when you get into the Thresh and you know that players are there, they're kind of walking around the map, there's just nobody there. The Thrash didn't really get anything that you needed, besides a lot of information, and trust me, Recon Dart would have done that for a lot less.
Tight need to find a refrag. Back, though, this one on Decane, but look, Spike's gone down. St. John Bosco tend to really like this C site. But now Quartz and Aurora have util. Actual utility. Smokes, paranoia, shrouded steps. Something that can close that distance and cut off sight lines. They'll send out a guiding light, maybe a Tasmanian Tiger to follow suit if it's up and running. I think that will be the case for St. John Bosco. IE will hop on the point. They'll send out a huge blind to be sent forward. Dizzy tends to be a very annoying piece of util, especially when there's a single sight line to send it through. It is guaranteed to send a charge, to send that plasma beam out and blind as many players as possible. Sean, utility-wise in the first half, I'll give you a B, but so far in the second, S tier, you have been doing a wonderful job.
Well, I mean, when you got an ultimate in round 3, you're obviously going to look pretty good compared to everybody else. We just don't see it utilized very often because, I mean, that Thrash is something completely different from what we've ever seen. I mean, with the Seekers, they're just kind of there, a little bit of information. But the Thrash being able to be picked up and utilized twice, knowing that it's essentially a free kill off the back of it, it's so impactful, and especially for an early on kind of emphasis, it's going to be really good. But speaking of early on, Take Notes is looking for some early picks, or at least definitely signing up for some early firepower, because, well, you're in a very bad spot where so many players are going after you, and the wingman's going to go ahead and let them know where to start shooting.
Knowing where to shoot's an important factor, and St. John Bosco have been pretty clean with it. Kane caught out a little bit. Still looking to have some fun. Sky taking down Dake to only a sheriff. They were pivoting in to maybe get the rifle that Kane had previously, but it's not going to matter. Shane Marie swing back around through top. Take control of that flank of stairs, and that'll be round 1 for St. John Bosco, who have been clinical on this second half, Dallas. A wonderful performance. They were down at halftime, and they've gone on a 4-round spree, and it just doesn't seem like Quartz or Royal have an answer.
Which, I mean, this is a little bit reminiscent of what we already saw to John Bosco. Their defense isn't the greatest in the world. They love aggression because they like to play off their duelists, which is typically Kane, who can always go ahead and keep on playing with the best. But Sean has made sure to at least have a much more adamant presence when it comes around to that defensive side. Thankfully, with those retake situations, that first half really starting to go their way every here and there. But speaking of right here, right now, what you're looking for is results, and already Kane is looking to get some of those. Able to go ahead and maintain at least one of those rifles in the meantime. knowing that, well, you can go ahead, just find something to cut these players off, and they are doing it again and again. Uncontested.
Oh,
this may be a flawless one to work with, as Take Note says, well, I'm going ahead and tucking their tail between their legs and get out of there.
Yeah, that's an operator, man. You're trying to save that as long as you can. They had 50 credits by the end of their buy phase, and they had soft armor. They're not even working with full armor. That is a get the heck out of Dodge scenario for Take Notes. You do not want to lose this rifle. Your team opted to go for one of the most dangerous strategies, a glass cannon and a costly cannon at that. And now it's a guaranteed for St. John Bosco. They know what you have, and they are looking to strip it from your hands. Costs them one life, but Neon's been dying every round. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's a cost that they are willing to give up. We're taking the gun out of yours.
Kane's not worried about the KD ratio. You went ahead and found enough emphasis in that last round, and knowing that Sean's going to be your little bit of a piggy bank there in the back, and just in case things go wrong, you're not concerned with it in the slightest. But John Bosco finally going ahead and stepping up on this attacking side, showing that, okay, this is where we start to excel in this map. This is why we chose it, because Quartz Hill, I got to admit, they had themselves some good lookings on the attacking side, but, I mean, they didn't really flex out too much. We didn't see them going to too many different sites. Meanwhile, John Bosco, they're starting to flex their wings a little bit more, and even then, more so, they're also looking at the stopwatch because they want to make sure it's quick.
St. John Bosco, once again, you talk about quick, you talk about pace. Look what's going on. Kane is in a very aggressive spot, already swung in from stairs and sees the shoulder of Itney first and foremost, sends out a relay bolt, and at least give themselves a chance. Itney's been paranoid away. Bolt comes back again, but it's just a huge time sink for Quartz Royal, and the only thing they gain out of that is a 3-player loss and a single rifle back in their hand. That is just the opposite of success. You think you find something that's 1 step forward, but in this case, 3 steps back with losing those players off screen. It is the worst possible state that Quartz Royal could be in. St. John Bosco, they're a snowball rolling down a hill, and it's a blizzard. That thing is picking up pace and gaining mass fast.
Yeah, I mean, I already mentioned it earlier. I mean, looking at what Quartz Hill was trying to go for, take notes, going ahead and opting into the operator once more, even though you didn't even get a chance to kind of flex it during that first time you bought it. Things aren't looking too hot for him, because next round could be map point. And even then, as a follow-up, knowing that, I mean, Bosco's obviously expected to be winning that first map, things aren't looking too good, considering that, I mean, you haven't even had any kind of real warm-up against this squad when it comes to them being on the attacking side, because every single round so far has just been overwhelming. So we're going to see whether or not they keep it going, and that's exactly what they do. Even then, looking to get damage onto the operator and closing it out. Kane, what are you doing?
Kane is an absolute threat on the field, toying with their food. Wonderful play to take control towards a Link, using that to capitulate the point further to the operator player, who once again over-purchases for Quartz Royal. A rifle will do you justice, will do you wonders, and they just aren't taking advantage of it. And it's put them in such a huge economic downturn. Zexy takes down Miri. Vea finding a frag towards Staked. I don't think Zexy's going to move in towards this objective. They're just going to say, this loss, it's going on the chin. We're going to try to get as much as we can out of this, but we can't really promise too much. Trying to collect that operator, and it's stripped like every other round. And the only thing that will survive is Zexy with a single rifle. But the rest of the team can't do that. SMGs. A thrifty. It is the last possible round. It may just be the last round at this tempo and what's being brought. You gotta get what you can. And it's 2 judges, a Phantom, and a Bulldog.
It's something.
It's something.
And it's definitely more than a pistol. It's more than a Spectre. It's more than a Stinger. It's more than a Marshall. It's something. It's a rifle. And it's a couple shotties, knowing, especially with how aggressive that we see John Bosco get, you're kind of definitely happy with in the meantime. So, gotta look for some results here. Even then, better yet, get some information in the meantime. But Zexy, you talk about that one player surviving. That may be all you need with what they did during that first half. And they've already got themselves a pretty good case for themselves here with these first couple kills.
It's been really important that we see Sean get a huge piece of sightline denial there with Dizzy multiple times now. It's been really effective on these sites. Lockdown comes forward, though, for St. John Bosco. Miri will step through it. Paranoia out towards the back of B. More towards Link than upper. Sean will go for the plant here with one of themselves. Not using Wham Man. I'll take that one back. Doing it all by them lonesome. The rest of the team will pivot away. Sky up in top of B. And unfortunately, Sky is playing closer towards Link. just catches players off guard. Zexy, who saved the rifle last round, you said was doing wonders with it early, but St. John Bosco, when the going gets tough, get tougher.
Yeah. Or kind of get a little more crazy with it and see really what they're dishing out. But knowing that, I mean, think about it. On that A site, you got a nice little big narrow archway that you have to go an entry through unless you're looking for a little bit of a split through the door. Your duelist or whoever you're going to have on an operator possibly, if that's going to be opted to bring in, could go ahead and keep on watching the middle of the map and just close an entire entry together. In your KJ can hold down the A side if you do want to go for somewhat of a wild card play. Same thing for B. KJ is very, very efficient on this map, and you're more than likely going to see her absolutely everywhere. But speaking of operators, speaking of players, take notes. Being that Jet in the last map, I went ahead and mentioned them early on, said you got to go ahead and start feeling yourself a little bit more on this attacking side, otherwise things aren't going to look too hot. And then going ahead and just ending up being the bottom frag of the entire game for their squad when it came around to the very end of the map. That is not the momentum and the heat that you want to see out of your main duelist going, especially into Ascent, where mistakes are inevitable every now and then, but man, they cannot happen whatsoever, especially with the one who is heading your entire operation.
Kane has been exceptionally strong when it comes to playing as Raze, playing as Jet, playing as Neon. Now the Jet comes back up on the board. Kane can really feel into that duelist ego, so to say. I highlighted that when you're playing for scholarships, you're also playing for collegiate attention. And Kane, one of the first players that college is going to look at. It's very hard to ignore a player that is top of the scoreboard, but players in colleges more specifically also look for utility players. Keep in mind, players, schools out there brewing up their own teams. It's not just the top frags that get the job done. They have to have that high level of assistance, and Kane gets it and gets it well. Can't do what they're capable of if the team doesn't let them, and it's working already. First blood netted for Kane, 2 back-to-back for St. John Bosco. An awkward engagement in Garden, but it still does fall in favor for St. John Bosco, taking round 1. Starting off on the attack, let's hope it's not a repeat of their attacking half here that we saw just last map on Lotus.
Yeah, getting some clean starts here from the side of John Bosco. I mean, especially with that pistol round and what we saw in that last map, and even then, usually out of them, they like to find themselves 3 in a row. They're very good at kind of getting in your face, always taking you by surprise in that third round, where they're going to knock some rifles out of you, guaranteed. But it all comes down to a round like this of how effective they can be in the meantime. With that Vandal going ahead and getting into the hands of Sky, and already Mary, Via, and Sean possibly looking at those Spectres, but Via with a little bit of a switch up there. So I'm excited to see some rifles being brought in here into the fray to see what exactly can be done with them. But we got to see if we can get some clean kills off the back of those, more importantly, because, I mean, this is your force round. This is where you're supposed to start going off, and Blank just can't really get that opportunity.
Yes, St. John Bosco netting themselves an early pickup, none too surprised. Player inside a market, though. Look how Kane is opting not to purchase anything. I'm maybe expecting them to force out round 3 with an operator, round 4 with an operator, something that's more pricey, considering that they've pretty much eco-saved out this round, and they still found 3 kills. They're, what, 1 away, maybe 2 away from already having the Bladestorm charged and ready. It's Sean to find out the final frag they're on to take notes, and it's a flawless round 2, meaning not only did Quartz Royal fail to drop any of the weapons for St. John Bosco to make it at least costly, they failed to find any leeway going further beyond that. Kane's going to go and opt out here for a judge. This one's honestly not that shocking either. They played exceptionally well with that on that Neon previously. Just trying to meet the team, play for that next round where you're kind of expecting a loss here in this one, and just play for round 4 where you can really bring the momentum with all your rifles.
Yeah, gotta see what you can really do here, knowing that even then you already invested a little bit in John Bosco. They're the ones on the attacking side. They get money for these plants. Quartz Royal does not have that privilege right here, right now. Knowing they're already down 0-2, they have a couple players that are sitting on half shields. And knowing that Kane already has all the presence in the world sitting at these archways and could possibly get a kill out of that, you just don't see it happening nonetheless. But still, look, kind of look for some damage, but they couldn't even find that. Didn't even find a shot out, sadly enough. As interesting as that would be to see. Knowing, though, but now in the post-plant situation, this is outstanding for Bosco. Just going ahead, as I mentioned, getting the credits to work with, finding that leeway, getting that space, getting that aggression across the map, and knowing this war of territory is favored towards them right now. It just comes down to how well they can hold it. With these close angles, it should be pretty easy.
Go for one. That'll set yourself up nicely. Unfortunately, with the loss of that first blood, you may need it a little bit more than that. Quartz Royal find a refrag the other way. Take notes on Amiri. They have Sean spotted here with a recon bolt over the top. Vea Gets isolated by Take Notes, and it's Sean now in the 1v1, buying as much time as they possibly can. A game of go-see. It's Sean! Upsets Quartz Hill Royal! And St. John Bosco will go 3 in a row, losing every weapon, but who cares? Buy the rifles, be victorious. And now leading into 4, what can Quartz Hill Royal do? Well, it's going to be another thrifty. They cannot afford another rifle by back-to-back.
It's that point, again, where I mentioned John Bosco and these attacking sides, especially here starting things out with momentum, that last map, winning everything flawlessly through that second half where they're saying, all right, we're right back on the attacking side. They are just keeping this rolling along. I mean, it's the same game. Act like it's the same map for all I care. Just forget like B even exists because, well, boom, it's the same thing. It's just 2 sites. It's anywhere on the map, and you have yourself an advantage to work off of. And what now feels like tenfold, considering that you won that 3rd in a row and locked out Quartz Hill at least here for another bye. Bladestorm is on the field. That is going to be your saving grace from Take Notes. But, I mean, already, John Bosco, they want all the beef. They want to make sure to push all these problems right into your face. And they'll get somewhat of an exchange out of it. But, man, they don't really care what they give away so long as it's not the round.
St. John Bosco, unfortunately, looking at a 3v3 when it could have been a lot cleaner from them. Sean will extend outwards. Sean going to be a bit quicker on the draw there tonight. And he could have had an ace, but it'll be a buddy ace between them and Sky. 3 for Sean, 2 for Sky. St. John Bosco will pull out round 4. The Bladestorm for Quartz Hill Royal just didn't find the impact they wanted. And unfortunately, it was the only ultimate they had. Blanc was not able to charge theirs with that loss. Didn't find another much-needed kill. The same thing cannot be said for St. John Bosco. They don't get a free pip at the end of these rounds for winning it out. That's a loser's luxury to give them a chance to climb back. Instead, they're doing it with mostly kills and plans for the objective alone. And that's impressive. 3 players, Sean, Sky, and Kane, ready with the ultimates. And they're going to start to peruse a new objective, diversifying their attacking approach now towards a site where, look, Bladestorm is out. Unfortunately suppressed by the wonderful send of that 0-point lightning.
There it is. Take Notes finally getting one on the board. Able to hold things out with an operator at least for another couple seconds. But knowing that you're going to go ahead and go for a rotation off that. Quartz Hill finally have a presence in this game. And it comes out with that burst blood necessarily when you know that you actually have guns to play off of. Following things up with a second, picking off Kane. That's going to be huge here. Sure, it's 4 rounds in a row for John Bosco. Quartz Hill, they're just happy that they're now getting picks because that player, as I mentioned, Take Notes, actually has to have somewhat of a say in this game. Didn't really have too much when it came at all to that last map. But starting off here with 2 picks, you're saying, all right, it was all just a whim, and they just never went to the site that I was sitting on. That confidence is starting to instill itself a little bit, and maybe it could carry into some rounds here soon.
St. John Bosco with a bit of a tumultuous start, not really liking where they are. Take Notes will continue to drive the point home, and while you do find 2 picks from Mary and Sky, the rest of the team will fall quickly. I wasn't sure why Take Notes is playing so darn close to the chest there with that operator, holding behind wood stack on A, closer to arches instead of maybe up in rafters, but that slight, jarring angle at which they were working from was just enough to catch St. John Bosco off guard, and they just weren't quick enough on the draw to retake that angle, and it gave Take Notes also another perfect angle to assist the player in Garden who was dealing with that tree pressure. A really well set, done Quartz Hill Royal defense, but the second that they lose that operator and can't re-afford it, it just seems like St. John Bosco will find themselves in another position where they can come from, and this may just be the testament for this round, as already Kane is on this A side.
Yeah, and even then, with full control of it as well. Checked every single corner. Didn't check hell in the meantime, but, you're not really thinking about that. No players going to corner themselves. And already just looking to see what can be done in the meantime with the post plants. The timer is already ticking in your favor. Attackers now become defenders, and they're all just rushing themselves right back to the main area. You have one player obviously kind of lurking about, looking to go ahead and get the information of where these players could be, and getting that owl drone across the top, letting you know how many players are up in heaven, how many under. It doesn't matter. Sky will kill them all towards tree, and Take Notes is looking to try and go ahead and be the catalyst for a retake in the back of the map with nothing but an operator in hand.
Notes recovering. Unfortunately, Valorant timing at its finest. Take Notes looks the other way and will pay the price because of it. It's Blanc with a great attempt, trapped over by door. And there just was not enough patience and coverage there for them to survive, and it'll be St. John Bosco coming out with another round victory back-to-back. And here's where that problem starts to arise, Dallas. Once they lose that operator, which has been the best weapon of choice here for Quartz Hill Royal, not just for Take Notes, but just as a whole for the team.
Yep.
More kills have been gained for that weapon, it seems, than almost every other weapon combined. It's been very stringent for the Quartz Royal in terms of frags. They don't have enough to afford it. In fact, they can't even buy normal weapons going into this round, and they're going to be pulling themselves up by the bootstraps and maybe taking a big rush in here towards B main, following that paranoia, but plan falls short. Here's the Hunter's Fury, and Blanc gets a big look at damage off to at least one.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter all that much. Looking at the rest of the team, what John Bosco is doing, I mean, you're trying to compensate inside this round with the kind of lack of resources, knowing that you've been dying over and over again. John Bosco just doesn't care, man. They're getting in your face. They're playing the game. And they said, honestly, good job, buddy. You just wasted an ultimate in a round that didn't really matter for you. You should have taken it on the chin, but instead you wanted to fight for it, and you lost even more in the meantime. So with Spike down, from the shadows being invested, a complete switch up here for John Bosco as they found themselves a flawless round take. They guaranteed themselves an even half no matter what.
Oh, Dallas, it has been a tough matchup for Quartz Royal. Round after round, the luxury that they could have been given to themselves is just no longer there. Take Notes has the money in this round to buy full armor if they choose to do so, but I think they're going to buy the rest of the util and maybe bring a weapon over to one of their teammates. They're going to still stick with that kind of glass cannony build. Still soft armor, so it's at least a little bit of extra protection on top at St. John Bosco. They tear through full armor, so what's going to be different about soft? Look at the change of a strategy for them on this attack as well. Sky moving in towards Link. Nobody applying pressure for Quartz Royal. Yes, an operator is there, and they're playing quite close, but it still gives a free kill to St. John Bosco with Sky taking down their doppelganger of Days.
Alrighty, I mean, just once again, these early picks coming through in a rifle round, better yet. We are expecting Quartz to kind of get something on the board. That operator is being whipped out once more. I mean, it seems like a crutch here for side of Take Notes, and it just isn't doing everything you need it to. It's made out of plastic, it feels, because it keeps on crumbling right underneath you with the weight that you try to put up against it. And knowing that, I mean, already guaranteeing yourself another one. You're seeing this flip-flop back and forth. The economy just looking horrendous. You got to see what John Bosco can do to really just kind of double things down. But better yet, what Quartz will do, which I could say a timeout would be maybe in order, but I feel like it's long past to do. With 4 ultimates to work with, the Blaze Storm being one of them. Because that economy score, Take Note, sure may be in at the top, but I guarantee they're probably towards the bottom in regards to that stat alone.
Gain's going to play close here. Bringing the operator that was had and held by Quartz Oro previously. They try to swing in aggressively, and, oh man, Blanc just, despite playing close to the shot, he just gets caught off guard. Player swinging through was too locked in on Kane, who went over the top. Perfect strategy to come out here for St. John Bosco to really stop that initial pressure. And though the Blade Storm is out here for Take Notes, this operator is well in their hands. This is tough. Lockdown to buy more time. St. John Bosco playing with essentially still 4 men on the field. Father Time helping them tick the seconds away. And once that detain is finished, that may be the turning point here for Quartz Royal. What a play by VAL. Perfect positioning to deny the 0 point, and it's not going to matter. St. John Bosco secure. Huge round again. Now climbing to 8-1. They seemingly have an answer and know exactly what Quartz Royal are bringing every round.
Yeah, I mean, just over and over again, but even in their defensive side. So, I mean, what they're bringing, it's just a defense. It's just going to be your standard setup somewhere. They're going to try to sit in the back of the map and hopefully kind of get somewhat of a lockdown and maybe find some luck here and there to get a couple first picks on the board. But they just have not had that opportunity squeaked for them just yet. I mean, you can already see over and over again, just bringing that speed in there. It all started in that first round. Well, I'd say it started in the last map when you saw their attacking side go flawless again and again and again. So knowing that you're just going to be probably repeating history, trying to just slow things down, as you mentioned, what feels like an avalanche right now, it feels like the entire mountain is starting to fall from its foundation, not just the exterior.
It's a ridiculous performance from St. John Bosco. There's just no other way to phrase it. I've casted Quartz Royal. We've casted St. John Bosco. Quartz was a team that had a glorious performance when it came over to Haven. I was really hoping that we would get to see that map. But unless Quartz Royal put something in high gear, start kicking themselves in the flank, this is not going to make it to our last and final map. This will conclude 2-0. In a very quick fashion, might I add. Yes, map 1 was a little bit longer. But that's seemingly just because St. John Bosco was starting off on the defense, which is arguably their weaker half. We highlight 3 as the minimum you really need to work with. The question is, could Quartz World even meet to 3? And that is the worst kind of question as a commentator that we want to ask. It's just not fun for us, and I'm sure it's not fun for Quartz Royal. Kane, though, swings out, in through walkway, in through tree. 2 off the board, make it 3. Zexy's done and dusted. And it will be just 1 now remaining with Sean's frag on to date. Stolen for the Buddy Ace of the full house, whatever you want to call it. It's Sky on the final frag, and St. John Bosco will reach 9. This will require Quartz Hill to pull off the curse if they can even get these next 2.
Yeah, and looking at it around like this where they're just trying to squeak things together, knowing the next round isn't going to work out for them, but things don't work out here either. It's an all-or-nothing gamble, and as you mentioned, I mean, they're just trying to get that 3. Saying this round works out. Hey, we got it together. We get a couple weapon pickups. The people who have kind of on the higher end of money, we can see what we can get together there. I mean, we can just kind of drag that Phantom over better yet and hopefully just kind of hold on to the rest of it. But that's considering that, well, everything goes perfectly here. That's a lot to add. You're hoping a miracle just comes right out of thin air. You have to make this happen. You have to find these opportunities. And already, when you're looking for a war of attrition, of territory, trying to see who has the most kind of presence around the map, obviously the attackers being all the way in defender spawn out of Kane, they're kind of winning that battle respectively, but the man count just goes completely even as we're 1 for 1 here.
Diggs hiding in the back of Boathouse. Kane, like you said, going 1 for 1 on that opener. Quartz Royal are just nowhere near. Look at the play from the shadows. That's been stolen, and Quartz Royal couldn't stand on the diffuser long enough, onto the spike long enough. And because of that, it will be stolen by St. John Bosco as they pivot now over towards the B side. But Dake did a wonderful job of going even in the back of Boathouse. Itany not far behind, having to use their own relocation tool to help and assist. But the free tool for the Bea, they tried it. Sky comes out with one of their own. It's just a mosh podge right now of frags. A very interesting setup here for St. John Bosco, but May looks like they have the chance to go 10-1 as the spike goes down. Sky's been suppressed. Not that they have much more utility to work with. Neri has been as well, but playing over towards B and just not seen or spotted. They'll DB&O Zexy. Needed to be picked back up. It's not going to happen. 10-1 St. John Bosco, and we still got another one we got to go through.
Yeah, that's where things start to sting, man. I mean, knowing that you don't have a buy in that last round, and you sure as heck don't have one right now, you're just trying to squeeze things together. I'd say it's a little bit better, but you're taking a lot more sacrifice with the utility and the armor not really being there in the back end. So survivability being your biggest problem, and you can't even invest every single bit of it into a round like this, is concerning to say the least. But knowing that already Bosco guaranteeing themselves 10 on the board is outstanding. 9-3, we say it over and over again. I mean, that is the bare minimum for a team that's going to be behind. And knowing that 10-2, I've seen it in the 2.5 years I've been casting Valorant once. And it was on my favorite map of Breeze. God bless its soul being gone. But,
Rest
I mean,
in peace.
Exactly. But regardless, I mean, if there's another pretty map that everybody seems to enjoy, well, actually, not everybody enjoy Breeze, but that I enjoy at least, this could be the place to do it. And Quartz Hill is going to have to really do it if they want to start it right here, right now.
You are powerless.
0 points seemingly going out for St. John Bosco. That over towards the A side, but look where that spike currently lies in wait. It's over on B. St. John Bosco playing a huge long con game, and I mean con in the literal way. Trying to maybe bait that Quartz Royal need to move more of their defense to the A side, while in fact the pressure is actually on B. Sean gets 1 kill after the 0 point. Quick escape over towards B side, because they're at a man disadvantage. They need all the numbers they can get. And with Day still in the back of Boathouse, and they had scraped another kill and for a 1v1 in just that last round, who's to say that can't occur here as well. Chipping away that armor, Day is taking huge licks of damage, but unfortunately shock darts just don't really apply the same oomph that they used to. And it will cost them quite a lot of HP, but it also still gives Dake a 1-for-1. That is a really impressive performance from Dake, but it's not going to be enough to deny. And instead of having a boat or a B main player, it's now Market. Sky holding down, but Block catches them perfectly, leaving just Sean in a 1v3. They'll need a 4K in this round alone to secure. They already closed out for a third. No, an ace will be acquired. I apologize. Sean's gotten the third. He's gotten the fourth. He's the ace! And Sean takes St.
It's... I don't know. It's just... I guess it's just the cataracts kicking in. I don't know. It's something.
You just don't see him. It's one of those moments. You see it plaguing the high school scene specifically. When you're clearing a corner, your crosshair needs to be as close to the edge at which the player will appear from as possible. A slight gap to give yourself some leeway. We saw it beautifully played there by Sean. Of course, he had the tiniest of alleyways at which he needed to keep his mouse and his crosshair there. Just wasn't enough from the players from Quartz Royal that tried to take that swing. And it just plagues you. And it becomes a bigger problem than it should. And now St. John Bosco are just 2 rounds away from winning a 2-0 series and taking first here. And Kane starts this off with a banger. Huge shot from bottom mid to get a 1-tap kill with a share.
Oh, just once again, this round's going away. Bosco showing their prowess in these already, but on the defensive side of the map, they haven't really been nearly as lucky. But already starting things off, having a head count advantage, sure, a lot of damage done to 2 of the players in the meantime, but I mean, this is technically equal across the board when you consider health pools, but playing out trades, regardless, 1 or 100 health, a player can still do something outstanding.
Sean gets a 1-for-1 trade. Sky goes back the other way, but VAL holding the crossfire that we saw previously from Take Notes with that operator in the 1 round they won. Catches Quartz Royal off guard, peeking a bit of their own strategy against them. It's just as it's a tough position. And maybe if it was a 10-2 half, I would say Quartz Royal, take this next round of the loss, don't force, and just try to meet and beat St. John Bosco for a flawless half, much like they pretty much did. But they don't have that luxury. They have to force out after that first round loss. They have to get back into it. They'll go full SMGs, soft armors. St. John Bosco, defending-wise, try to meet them out the gate towards B main. But Quartz Royal have just sprinted onto the A side. They'll play objective as fast as they can.
Yeah, and you're just going to see Bosco kind of hold things out for a second. Knowing this force came through, knowing the dire situation this team's in, you can see it. The knife for the door coming out saying, look, play for retake. We know what's going on here. Somebody needs to lead the charge. Get an owl drone up top, and already they are waiting for each call one by one to be made, and they already go ahead and take a perfect execution through, knowing they have the armor advantage. It all comes down to Blank, who is in hell, and well, better yet, hell for the rest of the squad as this series comes to a close.
It is St. John Bosco taking a 13-1 victory. A tough map 1 for them, but map 2 did not seem to relay the same